Good evening, friends. Another episode of Kirby Russia, where I, Tim Kirby, a media figure within Russia of American heritage, tells you about how the world looks through a Russian lens. And boy, do we have something to look through a lens that the whole world is looking at, especially the English-speaking world, and that is the attempt to take the life of former President Donald Trump recently. I have to apologize. I know probably as someone who does a lot of videos about politics and stuff, maybe I should have done a video that day or did something, but I was with my kids, and to be honest, guys, it's really hot in Russia. And one of these things is, since I am not we're going to talk about what I do know, but I can tell you a few things that I don't know. So what I do know is the media. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. The media reaction and all that stuff. What I don't know is, I am not a security expert, so I really don't appreciate when some people go way outside of their league, and they come on and they do all sorts of podcasts, and they don't really know what they're talking about, and everything looks like something. So sometimes, when it comes to analysis, I want to let it breathe and let other people make stupid mistakes by coming out too quickly. Now, anyways, the only thing I can't tell you about maybe the expertise of firearms usage is I did see one debate in the news, and I think for the most part this has been settled by apparently there's a lot of former Secret Service agents who are willing to go on podcasts, including on my channel. You should have seen it was a discussion between, I believe he was a former Secret Service agent, well, he was a sniper for sure, but I think he was in the Secret Service. Anyways, it's Larry Johnson. Larry Johnson interviews this guy, and it really lays out in detail a lot of the aspects of the sort of shooting aspect of the event, right? One thing that I can tell you is that I don't believe this sort of weird mainstream media lie, or some people saying that, like, the shot was guaranteed. It was, the other people are saying it was so close that somehow this was fake because it didn't hit, or sort of the opposite, that the shot was impossible. I can tell you a couple years ago, well, more than a couple years ago, this guy's a pretty good guy, but unfortunately, due to my lifestyle and obligations, we don't get to hang out very much. But at the time, we were hanging out, and he's a big-time practical shooter, really, really talented guy. He's won all sorts of championships and medals and this, that, and the other. And we were at sort of the end of shooting some stuff, and he was like, like the gun he had, I think it didn't have, like, the, what is that thing called? I can't remember. Like the optics on it, where you have like the laser that's in the optics. Well, I know it's a sight, but what kind of sight? Laser sight? But then when I think laser, I think the laser that extends out of the gun. But anyways, it didn't have the fancy optics on it. It had only it was basically like a civilian AK, right? And the optics on it were just the crappy iron sights and all that. And he was like, I bet you can't hit that target out to 150 meters. And I was like, I bet I can. And friends, I am not saying that I'm a good shot, and I'm not some sort of tactical expert here, but I picked up that gun and this is someone who is not an expert, not military trained, not someone who uses guns regularly. When I was a kid, I did, but as an adult, I certainly don't. And 150 meters is even farther than 130 yards, and it was pretty easy to hit a target standing. Remember, the person who did the shooting was laying down. So I just wanted to say that for the people who say that shot was like nigh on impossible, from my own personal experience, I can tell you it was very much possible. And in fact, if his sights were sighted in, fairly easy. But thankfully, nothing happened. Now, that's all I have to say about really the event from some sort of expert opinion. All I can do is, 5 or 7 years ago, I was able to essentially do a sort of dry run of taking that sort of shot. But you also have to remember there's the certain factor of nerves, and humans have weird reactions. I've seen in the media on the Russian side that there's one video where there's some sort of like weird looking cop. He very much like, for those of you who remember, a Barney Fife kind of cop, like someone who, they really like being a cop because it makes them feel cooler than they are. He's sort of in the background of the video, and it almost looks like he puts his gun at some point towards Trump as he's like getting in the limo. But I think the guy's arm was just tired, or there's this video of this woman who's sort of like calmly just sort of pulls out her phone and start filming, and everyone's like, it's part of a conspiracy because there's this woman there. Like, people react to stuff in a weird way, in a really weird way, guys. So don't give in to that stuff that all human beings should react in exactly the same mechanical way. That's not a really good way to look at this event. But anyways, from the Russian media side, I wrote a tweet that I just auto-translated and posted up to Tim Kirby Russia Hardcore. And this is why I tried to inform the Russian public. So I'm going to share it with you. Maybe that sounds a little weird, but again, one of the things I think might be interesting with this channel is as someone who's a much more popular media figure in the Russian language than my own native language. I kind of like to tell you guys what's going on behind your back, what activities I'm doing while you're not looking. So anyways, there's a lot of this isn't all quotes, but you'll figure it out. So Trump can already be congratulated on his victory. The most Russian-American Tim Kirby, author and host of his travel show of the same name, assessed the consequences of the assassination attempt on Trump for Lomovka. With one unlucky shot, Trump received the invisible mandate of the people, won the election, postponed the issue of civil war. Now, one thing is, guys, about when I'm speaking in Russian, I tend to be more hyperbolic because in Russian you're allowed to be. But I stand by this statement because if the elections work out to be amazingly super fair and biased, when you have someone who says they're going to be the leader and they get hit, and I know we could all live without our ear. You know, I've seen a lot of guys who are in the MMA who have really messed up or seemingly partially missing ears, okay? Missing an ear is a lot different in your life in terms of missing your arm or something. But how often have our leaders bled for us? And also, when he stood back up and screamed fight, some people could say, again, it was his ego, he had to show off and this, that, and the other. But I would say in some ways it's kind of the opposite. He really, I think, thought in that moment like, well, I can't go down like a punk. This is bigger than me, you know? In fact, there were a few Protestants who were, oh boy, Protestantism. They said that when Trump was sort of, went down, he was sort of almost like in the pose of praying, kind of. Maybe he sort of prostrated himself. Who knows? I wouldn't be surprised if there's some weird people in the Middle East saying he was actually bowing to Allah, something like that he's a Muslim now, because he was more the sort of Islamic sort of pose, more so than like a Christian prostrate pose. But whatever, he looked like he was praying to one version of our monotheistic God. And so these Protestant preachers are like, he was born again in that moment. Trump was born again. And when I heard someone say that, I was like, wow. I don't know about the whole born-again Christianity Protestant stuff. I don't think that's super close to being accurate. But in terms of like his maybe identity or his ability to become president again, he was certainly frickin' born again, wasn't he? Wasn't he? That was impressive. And just when he stood right back up to... I think he understood that was more about him. So there was this kind of born again moment. And when you have that happen, and I don't know, I think there's something about that moment. It was probably the best PR that any politician has maybe ever had. That's definitely an argument for like the top 3. Unbelievable. So I think that for the Russian public, I think the real issue is that unless there's some weird shenanigans, that was it. As soon as he stood back up with his fist raised, he won. It's over. It's over. No matter what they do, unless they remove the option of, selecting him in one way or another. We won't talk too in detail about that. But there ain't no way Big Mike is going to beat him. I'll tell you that much. Sleepy Joe, Big Mike, Shrill Hill, none of these people are going to beat him after this. That's the kind of stuff that really can get the masses behind you. So, anyways, point number 2 that I made for the Russian media space. Of course, if tomorrow he is taken out, then all this will be canceled. But the way things are now, this billionaire, unlike the rest of the cowardly elite, sacrificed himself. Albeit, fortunately, slightly, for the good of his homeland. And that's another thing to point out, is, remember, think about the people who are in like the wealth category of Trump. Okay? And this is going to sound like a Trump butt-kissing fest, but guess what, guys? When someone does something the right way, you got to praise them. And he handled this in the most right way possible. So, praise here is due. There's other stuff about like, well, I'm going to go into office and everyone's going to listen to me and I'm going to make a big bunch of change, but I'm going to make a bunch of compromises, and oh no, now I've surrounded myself with enemies and my presidential term is wasted. So that we can compromise Trump for his presidential term for trying to kind of buck the system, but expecting the system to just sort of go along with what he was going to say. I don't know. There's a lot of things you could criticize him for, but not this incident. And can you imagine what would happen if, let's just take some other people. How would Bill Gates or Hillary Clinton or Clinton, I said that weird, Clinton, let's see, who else would be a good one? AOC. I'm trying to think. Some of these other, like, well, AOC's not that rich. I don't know. Jeff Bezos is pretty buff, but I don't think he's very brave. I don't know. But let's just stick with like the of course, what's his face? Soros, Schwab. Can you imagine what would happen? I think most of those people, if they were even punched in the face, they would just crumble. They would crumble, wet themselves, and lay there on the ground begging for mercy. Imagine if they had their ear blown off. This is a big difference. Trump he is both billionaire and part of the masses from this moment on. He's now become a very unique billionaire. You don't, maybe, how many times have you heard of, man, this guy's a billionaire, but what a badass, ultra wealthy individual. How often do you hear that? I think Shaq, the basketball player Shaquille O'Neal, I think he's managed his money extremely well, and he might actually be a billionaire, and Shaq is a pretty tough dude. So there's like Shaq and Donald Trump, and that's about it. So, yeah. Maybe Michael Jordan is also at that level. I think Jordan could probably take a punch. Anyways, yeah, so continuing on with discussing what I'm saying. And remember, if you want to comment, if you comment anywhere on the Tim Kirby Russia Hardcore, our Telegram channel, you're going to see it there, or I'm going to see it somewhere on the site, and it'll be amazing. We'll take call-ins in a bit. I see someone wants to call in, but not quite now. Let me go through the points I made for the Russian media about this Trump thing, and then let's take a discussion about this again from a media angle, because you're talking to someone who is an expert in media, and especially the Russian media. So let's continue on. My next point was that Protestants write that he was saved by God's will and at the moment he was reborn. I kind of already mentioned this, but that is crazy and that is huge. That is, again, human beings live through stories, right? We live through stories and we live through legends and all that. And like Trump had his legend and his legacy written by this event, you know? And this is the kind of stuff like that people like that bards sing songs about. This is like the kind of stuff that you have in a science fiction novel. You're like, who knows, the next Dune movie that's in the future. So Paul Atreides becomes like this weird Messiah guy in the desert. Oh, I forget where the Dune books go. Someone has to rise up against the God Emperor. Who is it? Oh, I can't remember. I think it's a female character. But whatever. Whoever eventually rises up against the God Emperor worm, you know, they also get horrifically injured, but they just stand up and say, "I will destroy you, Worm Emperor." That's the kind of stuff that you can make an awesome sci-fi movie with, right? And yeah, so his legacy was certainly reborn. Again, about the nature of the whole reborn Protestant movement, guys, I think you guys, most Protestants, if not all of them, you guys have drifted way, way out into the fringes of the monotheistic universe. I wish you guys would come back. But anyways, I guess it's also good that at least some people here, maybe this can be some restore some faith in America for me, because at least somebody was thinking of this from a philosophical standpoint. Thank friggin' goodness. Because that's one of the things I kind of complain about. Because overall, I like the culture I was born into. It just didn't like me. But the one thing that I can't say is kind of a bother about America is like this whole thing of, man, not a lot of thinking, guys. You go across the country, not a lot of thinking. And it was really good to see someone think about what's the spiritual and philosophical context of Trump having his ear blown off. Yeah, interesting. That was a very Russian moment. But anyways, my next point. Trump stood up shouting fight over and over. Hollywood couldn't have done his PR any better. That's kind of what I said earlier with my terrible Dune analogy. I should have memorized the characters better. The farther the books go, the worse I know them. Yeah, I mean, what better PR could you get? There now, essentially, there's nothing that could get in his way. There is nothing, especially with the short time frame that they have. If Biden chooses to quit, or he's convinced to quit, or something of that nature, right? Yeah, it's yeah, this PR could not be better. No one can beat him. No one can beat him. Oops, someone's writing comments. Mr. Tim Kirby Russia, how are you doing there? Bro, it's very crazy what's going on. Trump is the man of America. Exactly, Bakani. He really has, like, through this one event, cemented himself and gone from being, well, he's this billionaire who says a lot of nice stuff. He sort of sacrificed something for the country. He didn't sacrifice that too much, but he actually gave blood for the country. That's pretty good when you're a candidate, isn't it? Isn't it? By the way, there is a so-called pastor named Brandon Briggs who on March 15th, 2024, talked about the attempt on Trump's life. He even talked about how the bullet hit his ear. It's crazy, man. You mean, I don't know, maybe, hey, I don't know. Sometimes you hear about some crazy prophecies that come true. I can't really comment on prophecy, guys. Sorry, that's a little bit beyond me here. But, yeah. So, the next part. If the U.S. election is fair, we can already congratulate him on his victory. That's absolutely true. There's no one who can stop him. Certainly he can stop himself. He can screw up this next presidential term, or I hope he understands, at least by this point, that there is no more compromise. You know, compromise time is over. So, anyways, next. For Russia, Trump is unpredictable, and it's hard to know what exactly the second term will bring. But at least he's against World War III. Because that goes back to the whole thing where Putin and co said that Biden is more predictable, and that's why he'd be a better option for Russia to be president. I think that was maybe technically true. Excuse me. Or should I say partially true. But ultimately, that's more like trying to dodge the question. And I think the logic, because I know Russians, and the fact that Trump says, I want to get along with you, at least outwardly, is something that's, of course, more attractive to Russians. But as the sort of Russian side made it clear, is that he kind of sort of tried it passively the first time, and it didn't work. So what's the guarantee that Trump could actually get the job done? That he could actually make peace happen? There is no guarantee. But ultimately, I still think that there's a little bit of hope that if Trump gets in the office here, that he might be able to, let's just say, in some ways, bring about at least halfway the multipolar world for the United States. So we'll see. I'll put it this way. There's a reason they fear him. You know, there's been a lot of people, there have been a lot of candidates over our lifetimes. And the machine has never been as afraid of anyone as they have been of Trump. So he must be up to something. It can't just be an accident. So, anyways, guys, that's kind of the media thoughts I have on this. As you see from within Russia, though, as someone who lives here, it's more, this event for Russians is more like just a cause to make memes. Like, whereas for people in the United States, we have this, we talked about, there's like a spiritual context of he's reborn, the whole like fight thing, that this is a real like spiritual moment for the United States, something none of us, apparently except for one pastor, saw coming, or at least not in this particular manner. But anyways, for us, it's something that's really special, and it is a you know, like a real moment in history. Whereas for Russians, they're like, it's something that's funny. there was blood and his ear got blown off. Ha ha, it's funny. Not in a like way like ha ha, it's your guy's bad or something. Not like laughing at, but just being like, we need to meme this. There's got to be more memes. Everything meme it. So I would say that's the real reaction within Russia is just meme frenzy. And of course, the official Russian establishment is like, well, we don't really know anything about this. I shared the post, I believe, from Maria Zakharova, the spokeswoman of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, and she was just kind of like, well, we don't really know much about this, and I don't have too much to say. Of course, she speaks very eloquently. I shouldn't do a comedic voice for her, but anyways. In fact, let's just read it. She said, in English, or at least the translation, all American media and commentators commenting on the assassination attempt on Trump, vying with each other to say this or that is a threat to American democracy. That's right. That means the threat is inside, not outside. I would just clarify that this is American democracy, which has been driven to a suicidal state by liberalism. So she took sort of a jab at the American system as a whole there, but she also wanted to drive home the point. I think the main point is we're not the enemy. Anything that wants to do evil to the United States is coming from within the United States. It's coming from within an evil elite and evil aspects of an establishment. I'm not saying the entire government is evil, but certain people certainly are, especially when they, create a lot of programs that seem pretty evil and a lot of evil ideas, and they destroy the United States in various different ways, seemingly consciously. But anyways, that was sort of the official Russian reaction. And again, like I said, the internet Russian reaction was just like, meme this, must make memes, more memes, and this, that, and the other. So anyways, Sam wants to talk. Hi, Sam. What do you have to say about this particular issue before we go into the next episode and talk about Viktor Orban's gallivanting? Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think The Apprentice, quote unquote, is doing exactly what his oligarchs that have paid and bought him. He's doing exactly what they've trained him to do. Trump is a crisis actor for the Zionist-occupied government. I completely reject what happened. I say it's a complete hoax to build fervor for his campaign. Well, the people that are in charge of America just select the winner. Okay, we have Dominion voting machines, and if you want to photograph a bullet, you have to put your camera into the right frames per second in order to capture that. It's very rare for a cameraman to have their camera right in the correct frames per second in order to capture a bullet. By the way, I worked in the medical field. Ears bleed very easily. They bleed very profusely upon even a small razor cut.
Okay.
He went down and then he came up and his ears bleeding.
You can't, no one can rant. We've got to go this step by step. So what you're saying is, this is like pro wrestling, okay? So in pro wrestling, when Ric Flair gets knocked over, he takes out a small razor blade and cuts himself on his forehead. Why? Because your forehead bleeds a lot when it's cut, but doesn't threaten your life. So you're saying this is like a Ric Flair blade job where Trump did something to himself? Okay. Woo! Now, the thing is, though, why does it matter? Why?
Okay, they need to galvanize the fat Americans, the people that don't have many brain cells left after doing the the super drinking aquariums of soda and GMO food and all this stuff. What's going on in America is the whore of Babylon who's getting ridden by the occult Zionist what are they, Kabbalah people? They're not even Old Testament Jews. You guys know that. You brought on guests. Let's go
back in time.
What's happening is the United States is being used.
Okay, so let's go back in time to before Trump became a presidential candidate. So why didn't they just run someone like Mitt Romney back then against what would it be then, Hillary? Why not just to get another stat? Why have this weird guy who's sort of outside the system just have another two candidates? And because that's what's happened our entire lives. What's the difference? Why is there this? Why? Hold on. Why do people need to listen? You're not listening. Why would people need to be galvanized? What's the point of that? Just have the same elections with the same two parties over and over again.
Yeah, two wings of the same bird. It's because they need a distraction while they set up their new world government program out of, they want to replace the United Nations with the Sanhedrin. That is the goal.
Okay.
They want to set up the third temple.
Distraction. Well, people are already distracted. The majority of people don't even vote, and that's not because of anything. People can be distracted by bread and circuses, as they say. See, the thing is you're kind of hold on. Listen. Hold on. What you're kind of doing is you're trying to make this all sort of fit some sort of plan. But ultimately, you have this sort of false impression of the way human beings behave. You think that human beings are actually, if they're not actively distracted by something, that all human beings would be extremely in tuned and extremely aware of what's going on in all this. Dude, the masses sleep, and they have for all of human history. They toil, and they don't really participate in much. So I don't think it matters. It wouldn't make any difference whether it was... there's no necessity to distract people when they're already distracted.
Well, another distraction only helps the cause. I'm not leaning on an argument of the distraction. And I will say Trump has inadvertently caused a lot of people to wake up. I woke up on things. I was asleep. I believe.
Would it be just better if they would have just stuck with Mitt Romney? He's a smiling skin bag. You know what I mean?
He can't. He doesn't have the gravitas that Trump
He doesn't need gravitas. It's a two-party system.
But Trump really gets people riled up.
Because remember, you're arguing that that there's a total, concrete conspiracy. So this total conspiracy has control over everything. So why pick listen. Why pick someone who could rile people up and get them thinking, where you could just have a Ted Cruz?
Because then you get the mandate. You get popular mandate that way.
You don't need popular mandate if they control everything.
Demagogue.
If you're saying there's absolute total control, mandate isn't needed. A mandate of the people is necessary if someone believes that there could be some sort of revolution, or that the government is somehow bound in some way to fulfilling the desires of the people on at least some level.
They need to manufacture consent, and the Fabian socialist model needs to manufacture consent. With Trump, you have a perfect demagogue. He tells everybody on both sides what they want to hear, and he's charismatic. Mitt Romney is charismatic.
Okay, manufacture consent. If there's another two-party election, we go back in time. We have, again, Ted Cruz, Hillary Clinton. Where do you need manufactured consent from? Well, what's going to happen? Okay, so we run Ted Cruz against Hillary Clinton. Who knows? Either one wins. What fucking difference does it make?
Well, the other thing is they want people involved in the political process, despite the political process not being effectual for the people's will. It's kind of like what Matthew Ehret talks about with Canada. The Privy Council runs Canada. The Prime Minister is a puppet of the Privy Council. In the United States, it's the Federal Reserve, it's the Zionist bankers. Those are the people that
is an attempt to burn out people's energy.
Correct.
Okay, well, they could burn out their energy
and get them to buy in.
Because listen, you have this weird, again, flawed logic that if they don't actively make you waste your time and energy doing something, then somehow you'd cause a revolution. And this is another flawed way of thinking, because normal people don't rise up; they are risen up. We've talked about this on the program many times before. And without some sort of central figure to make people rise up, people won't, and they can't. It's one of the flawed reasonings of, I'll put it this way. The Russian masses are a bit more wise. I was just talking to some Russian people about Armageddon, and they basically said that it would be better to not live, to have a bunker before the apocalypse, so that way you at least die first. Okay, because they understand that you can't do this thing where this whole thing of just individuals just somehow, if something isn't controlling them and keeping them down, they rise up and become heroic. That's some sort of libertarian nonsense. It's not the way human beings
but you got to listen to me. Trump is perfect because he is a funnel for that rebellious, revolutionary spirit. Okay, And what he does is he just squelches it. All the people that were in militias that wanted the government to, they just put their energy behind Trump, and then he's just a hot air balloon,
The
and it
militias
just
didn't do
blows out at
shit.
the end of the day.
The militias have not done shit. They have been
Correct.
uppity, and it's been decades. It's
I
been
know.
decades of them saying we're going to do this. It's all masturbatory. It is 100%
I agree with you.
masturbatory. It's just guys who want to pretend that they're revolutionaries. They want to pretend that they're Luke Skywalker and Han Solo and these other guys who are rising up against the Empire. They don't.
I don't
they're not gonna
disagree.
do shit.
I agree with you, but it's just about getting enough energy siphoned off so you cannot have a competing system. That's what these people are doing. That's why they start wars with Taiwan and, you know, cause chaos all over the world. They just don't want a system to compete with their system, with the Bretton Woods system.
Okay,
Basically.
well, yes, but that is. I can see what you're saying about that. Yes, you definitely do not get the feeling that they like any sort of competition. But again, I think you have your perception of human nature is very different from mine. I don't see that there is this grand necessity to. Okay, so how about this in Russia? All right, we don't. Really, the last election was already predetermined, right? Basically, not in an evil way, but just in the fact that there's a war on. There's really no one else to vote for, and to be honest, there's really no one as popular as Putin in the whole country, and everyone's happy with that. So, what is that?
Yeah.
Does that mean Putin is some sort of like ideological project from some sort of evil group, or what?
No. Autocracy is the default throughout human history. It actually lends to stability. Even if the autocrat wants a lot of wives, etc., at least you have a guy who's resource hungry just being isolated at the top.
But the thing is, there's no mechanisms of the kind you're referring to happening in Russia to just sort of keep people down. There isn't this a fake war of electoral politics. It doesn't exist here. No one gives a shit.
I mean, I defer to you.
Listen. So why isn't there then this glorious human spirit rising up all over Russia to challenge the emperor for his throne? Like in some
Okay, I'm going to
Hollywood
give you an
movie?
answer.
Yeah.
It's because the defense industry in Russia is not privatized. Okay, so you have a defense that is more in line with a kingdom, where starting at wars and fighting them is based on actual necessity, not some kind of adventurous entrepreneurism. And then they also have nationalized a lot of the resources, so that provides stability for the people. I would say Russia is engaged in more of like a fourth political theory a la Alexander Dugin than any other country in the world. I'm not saying that they perfectly are engaged in the fourth political theory, but it's a mixture.
System or not, where we were talking about that there's this, if we don't sort of control people, that they're going to rise up or whatever. That's, I think, was ultimately it. And that there's this extreme necessity to create some sort of fake messiah in order to drain people's energy. And if they don't drain people's energy, then they're going to do something. And I'm going to say in Russia, this doesn't exist. There is no fake messiah here.
Well, that's the United States is a different creature because there is no social stability in America. People are so hateful towards each other all throughout the country, even in the nice places. I live in a nice place in the country. They'll trust. We are low in-group preference, low trust. Okay, they'll hire an illegal immigrant without a blink of an eye over you, and you got to move on. And see, Russia has stability. There's a lot of things like your immigration laws are tight. Yeah. It's totally different kind of countries. It's apples and oranges. You really can't compare.
So I don't know, man. I think you just I don't know, man. You haven't won me over today. Maybe in the future. But anyway, Sam.
Okay.
I'm gonna let you go here. We're gonna see. Maybe there's some other messages. Maybe there aren't. Who knows? So. Then we'll go on to topic number 2, perhaps. I have a question I've been asking myself. Is Vladimir Putin right-wing or left-wing? Kind of neither. In fact, I want to make a sort of hyperbolic video in the future where I think the whole right-wing, left-wing thing is a little dead. I know it's cliche to say. People have been saying that for a long time. But I think the real thing that actually divides people into sort of these two camps or puts them on a political compass that actually like matters is whether they're for the global hegemon or whether they're for multipolarity. Because whether a party is right wing or left wing, if they're for multipolarity, their behaviors are much more similar than parties who believe the opposite. I think that's really the defining issue of our times. If we talk about what are the classical things of being right wing from an American standpoint, see the problem is that right wing in Europe tends to be a little bit different, even though it kind of looks the same on the surface. So let me go with American. So we have issues like we have taxes. Well, Putin just raised the taxes on the wealthy, in theory, to fund the war and a lot of social programs after the war is over. That probably, judging by the calculations, will definitely cover the war. There's plenty of rich people in Russia. So you could say overall, though, is Russia a high taxation or low taxation society? It's a low taxation society. So we could say that Putin is right wing on that issue. And then we get into stuff like, what is it? The classic. So the left in America wants a lot of social freedom, but control over economics. And the right wing wants a lot of control over social stuff, but a lot of freedom in terms of economics. And I don't know. It's kind of hard to say because when it comes to Russia, it's kind of neither. It's like kind of in the middle on both sides, you know? I don't know. So in terms of that dynamic, it's hard to say. So anyways, you had taxation being low. And then you also get in this whole thing of like, well, we have, social programs in Russia and there's social security and all that. But there's also a very, very, like I've mentioned many times in this program, the government really has set it up where they really want you to work for yourself. You can get a hint from the tax authorities. That's what they want you to do to make money, which is more individualistic. I don't know. It's really hard to say. But I would say he's definitely, I'll put it this way. If Putin is more popular amongst a group of people, especially if you were to take the or the Western right or left, he is definitely more popular with the Western right, because he is more serious and he is more focused on the country itself, because very often the left gets sort of grouped into the idea of being internationalist, right? And so with Putin, maybe on the surface, he is very much Mara, make Russia great again. Murga. So I can't do this in my head. But anyways, to make Russia great again and very much focused on Russia. However, he also is someone who believes that globalization is irreversible. And that's why we need the whole multipolar world. So that way there's not just one global hegemon at the table, but there are these sort of various civilizations sitting at the table. And so there's some diversity. So in some ways, there is an aspect of internationalism to an extent in Putin's politics. But there's also definitely a Russia first sort of way of looking at things, which might be more predominant. So it's kind of hard to say, guys. Obviously, Putin is very pro Christian, pro religion, but as you see, there really isn't. There's no like religious police yet. So it's also kind of like. I don't know. Is Putin right wing or left wing? He's more. I'll just say he's more popular amongst the right wing audience in the West. 100%. That's for sure. Again, probably because of the whole left wing's internationalism, and they don't like that. They don't like him. So, anyways, interesting question. That was a really good one. You know what? Maybe. Let's see. Well, maybe we'll have to do a whole separate live stream. Maybe we will have to do a separate live stream about this. So anyways, maybe that's a whole separate live stream. To be honest, this whole thing of Jews control the world is just a pile of dung. People have a choice to do right or wrong, not some control. Temptations are there, absolutely blah, 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 blah. Okay. Well, again, when we look at what's actually happening is, human beings have free will. This is very clear if you are Eastern Orthodox Christian or a Muslim, for sure. then you definitely believe in the concept of free will. And yes, human beings do have free will, and so there's this idea that there could be this certain group of people where they could really just make everything happen the way they want. And as anyone would know, people don't always do what you want them to do, even when you have the money, and everything is just a big mess. I am a believer in sort of the big mess theory, where there are a lot of different groups of high influence with big money, and they're all sort of in an eternal competition with each other. It's sort of a eternal Game of Thrones, and that's more the way that I see things. So yeah, because as we're seeing, Israel itself is falling apart, and they were unable to stop the rise of the multipolar world. So yeah, they're definitely influential in Washington, and yeah, if you want to have an election campaign in Washington, you are probably going to have to say some really nice things about Israel. But is it really getting them anywhere? Is it the end-all, be-all? Not so much. Wow, the stupid system muted Bakani. No. Don't do it. I'm sorry, Bakani. The system muted you. Someone... Can I get... unmute him, please. Anyways, I didn't want to do that. But I guess we got into a whole big conspiracy here. Anyways, guys, I've been rambling on for a while. Let's go to topic number 2 right now.